without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Chanel Bowman, who's the Associate Superintendent for the Department of Special Education, to give us an update from the Special Education Department.
Thank you so much, Troy. Happy New Year, everyone. The first thing I wanted to acknowledge on our second slide is that we do have a new board chair for the Prince George's County Board of Education, and that is Mrs. Judith Mickens Murray, who's now our chair, and our vice chair is Ms. Loita Walker. So I just wanted to acknowledge that particular change. I know that Ms. Mickens Murray has come to some of our SECAC meetings in the past, and she still desires and expressed an interest in joining us. So I did want to acknowledge those changes in leadership. On the next slide, I wanted to let you know this did come out in our newsletter. For those of you who subscribe to the Prince George's County newsletter, that Dr. Goldson's mid-year update can be found on our website. I have provided the direct link here so that you can hear all about the things that we have accomplished so far this school year in her mid-year report. So I wanted to make sure you had that link. The next thing I wanted to let you know is today is the end of the second quarter. Again, that's the end of our second quarter grading report card window. And of course, we can't believe school is moving so fast. The second quarter report cards, as well as the IEP progress reports. So remember, if we usually release our IEP progress reports, that really talks about the progress students are making with their IEP goals and objectives, along with report cards. And that release date is set for February 8th, 2023. Parents do have an opportunity during the grade appeal window. If there are concerns with your child's grade, there is a process where you can appeal that to your schools. And that window is from February 9th and it closes on February 15th. And then I just wanted to remind everyone that tomorrow is a
This is what happened.
I'm sorry, I heard someone say that they couldn't hear. Is everything okay?
We can hear you, Trino.
Okay, I just thought I heard someone say that. And then just a reminder that tomorrow is a virtual learning day. I know we have been reminding our families of that, so I just wanted to make sure you all were aware of that. On the next slide, I just wanted to provide some updates that we'll be sharing with you. I'm not prepared to do that tonight, but as you know, that there were boundary change initiative that we had been working on well over probably a year. The Board of Education did approve some boundary initiatives at the November board meeting. And so what I would like to do at the next month's meeting is I'll be providing an update on the new special education program locations for 23-24. There has been some shifts, as you know, there are new schools opening. And so I wanted to make sure that you have the latest information around that. And then I also wanted to share that we will be releasing this spring a parent's guide to understanding the central individualized education program process, as well as a parent's guide to understanding non-public school referral processes. We did have a focus group this summer of parents that came in. We had several focus groups to really talk about the process, those that had been through the process, to really give us feedback. We also had Sarah Whalen as our CCAP representative give us some feedback on our parent brochure. So we're still working through some of that feedback, and then we'll be prepared to release that after it goes through our review with our division chief this spring. So I just wanted to let you know that is coming soon. And then I wanted to also share that yesterday I had the opportunity to provide an update on our strategic plan, learning experiences, and parent resources to our Board of Education Academic Achievement Committee. And I have linked that presentation here for your review when you get an opportunity. So I did present to them last night, just giving them, again, an update on our strategic plan, action steps that we committed to working on this year, as well as learning experiences around specially designed instruction for students with disabilities, some of the resources that we are providing to our teachers, and then, of course, parent resources that we share with our parents throughout the district. And those are my updates. Just again, I just want to make sure that you are aware of our resolution team contact list. So I've listed here again for any new parents that may be new to Prince George's County Public Schools. We do put out an annual special education resolution team contact list if you have specific questions. So the first column is kind of set up with maybe the problem or the questions you have. The middle column gives you the contact person, and then the last column is the phone number and email address for folks. And Sarah has indicated it is also posted, thank you, Sarah, on the SECAC website, so it's easy to find. And that concludes my updates today. As always, feel free to reach out by phone call or by email if you have any specific questions that I can facilitate addressing. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bowman. Okay, so it is 6:40. We are making good time tonight. So what we want to do now is we want to transition on to, and if you have any questions for Ms. Bowman, like she said, you can reach out to her and email her with those specific questions. So we're going to transition now onto our presentations, secondary transition planning and preparing for life after high school. And so our first presenter is Ms. Doralee Palamos. She's the Assistant Supervisor of Secondary Transition for Prince George's County Public Schools. And so we're going to turn the floor over to Ms. Palamos at this moment.
Thank you so much, Troy, and thank you for inviting the Secondary Transition Office to present on transition planning for our young adults with disabilities. So again, I want to acknowledge the presence of Ms. Melanie Clark, who is the Outreach and Resource Program Coordinator at the Arc of Prince George's, and also Ms. Kiera Bragg, who's the Community Outreach Specialist for Total Care Services, one of DDA's coordinators of community services. So as I go along with the presentation this evening, they're going to be sharing some important discussion points and reminders for our families as we support our students in their transitioning years. All right, so transitions are naturally occurring events in the life of a student, such as when he or she moves from one grade to the next or from one school to another. Another important transition for our students is from high school to life after high school, something that we refer to as secondary transition. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act defines the term transition services as a coordinated set of activities for a child with a disability that is designed to be within a results-oriented process. And the focus is in improving the academic and functional achievement of that young adult with disability so that there will be a seamless transition from school to post-high school activities. This can include the following items listed here. Some may be appropriate for our young adults, and some of them may not. So it can include post-secondary education, career training, integrated employment, adult services, independent living, community participation, and community participation. So transition services provide stakeholders with the necessary resources, tools, supports, and even professional development or workshops to ensure a student's successful transition. So what is secondary transition? For many students without disabilities, the process from high school to post-high school life does not require much in the way of special supports or services. However, in the case of our students with disabilities, secondary transition is not always effortless. In general, the more severe the disability of the student, the more complicated the transition process can become. And it takes a few years to prepare the young adult and also the family, and a substantial level of outside coordination and support in order to streamline it. So it's based on the individual student strengths, needs, preferences, and interests. It's all student-centered and student-driven, includes academic instruction, related services, community experiences, development of employment, and other post-school adult living objectives, and if appropriate for that young adult, acquisition of daily living and independent living skills, as well as functional vocational evaluation. So this is Maryland's secondary transition continuum. So in our state, secondary transition begins at the age of 14. However, the real transition preparation occurs throughout the student's lifespan, even well before they enter school and into adulthood. So this continuum here shows how our students move toward meaningful participation in community, career, and post-secondary education. There are many different and specific experiences that occur when students enter different phases of their education, depending on their age, all in preparation and in anticipation of their desired outcome as they exit our high schools. So this graphic serves as a reminder for all of us to foster high expectations and the mindset of possibility, and that families do not have to wait until the child turns 14 to prepare them for successful post-high school outcomes. So in tonight's presentation, my main goal really is, aside from providing an overview of secondary transition, I want to provide the families with action steps that they can do now in order to prepare their young adult with disabilities to transition post-high school. So this is an example of a blank secondary transition plan. It's based on age-appropriate transition assessments and mainly a student interview. Once that is completed, measurable post-secondary goals are developed for that student, and then transition activities are developed for that student, and then quarterly progress reports are being developed for those activities as well. And then also it discusses the agency linkages. And we're going to go over those agencies in a minute or two. All right, so transition services. So again, it's a continuous process throughout high school, right? It's not a one-time event. It's not something we only prepare for when they are in their senior year or last 2 years of high school. It's collaborative. The parents are essential partners in the process. We need you there at the table and helping us plan for your young adult's future. But ultimately, the student is a key decision maker. The student is encouraged and expected to actively participate in this process. So having that student voice is very, very important in this process. So that's why we always invite them in our IEP meetings. They're required to be invited from 14 years old onwards. But of course, even when they are younger than that, they can still participate in their IEP meetings. So who are the key players in secondary transition? The student is at the center, and then we have the special education, special education teacher or case manager, the family, general education teachers, related service providers, the professional school counselor, and then the appropriate adult service agencies for that student. So again, students are in the driver's seat for the transition process. Their responsibilities officially begin in middle school, and they're listed right here. We want them to attend class and complete homework all the time. We want them to start having responsibilities and chores at home that they are being held accountable for. We want them to develop and use their self-determination and self-advocacy skills, which I'm gonna explain more in the next few slides. But the first way to develop this is helping them make choices, giving them those little responsibilities and chores at home, making them accountable, holding them accountable for those chores and responsibilities, and also participating in their IEP meeting and telling the IEP team members what their current strengths and challenges are and what their needs are to be successful in the classroom setting. And if they go out to the community and the work sites or do internship activities, what they need to be successful in that area as well. And then learn to use and maintain assistive technology if it's something appropriate for them. Take an active role in developing the IEP and in the IEP meetings that follow. So that includes the student input, student interview, and also letting the case manager know what their post-high school plans are. Engage in career awareness and exploration activities, such as completing transition assessments or career interest inventories. And then thinking about services that will help them in daily adult life so that the appropriate agencies can be invited to those IEP team meetings. They should really do a little self-assessment and self-reflection and determine what their goal is after high school. It could be both. It could either be employment or post-secondary education or training. So if it's employment, we make sure that in their transition activities, they have career awareness activities listed there, job readiness, community-based learning experiences, job sampling, work-based learning experiences. And then for post-secondary education, either technical trade schools or college or 2-year community colleges, they need to take appropriate classes, take entrance tests required, visit the disability support services or interview the representatives from the disability support office when they attend our annual special education college and career fair, visiting those colleges, attending college fairs. It could either be the ones that we host here in Prince George's County, or they can also visit, you can also visit the ones hosted by our neighboring school districts. Know what is required and what the application requirements are. And then they need to be able to decide if they're gonna disclose their disability to receive accommodations and remove the stigma from disclosing disability, because only 18% of our students with disabilities who attend colleges disclose their disability. So if they do not disclose it, they are not going to receive the accommodations they need to be successful in the post-secondary education or training world. Other key decisions that our students need to make is the choice between college versus trade school or technical school. Which one is best for me? What college do I want to attend? Is it going to be rural, suburban, urban type of college? Is it a small type of college, a college with 10 to 15,000, a medium-sized college? Or is it a large college? Are they going to be staying in state or out of state, close to home and commute, or away and live on campus? And then what do they want to study? What is their ultimate goal? What job do they want? And then again, the importance of disclosing their disability, because if they do not, they will not be getting those needed accommodations. So what are the options for our students after high school? There's post-secondary education or training, there's the employment piece, and then there's the combination of post-secondary education and employment. So they need to really consider what that will look like for them. So what are the key differences of K-12 education and then college or post-secondary setting? So this is where the entitlement versus eligibility discussion comes in. So in Maryland, a young adult with a disability who is receiving special education services is entitled to a free and appropriate public education through the school year in which the student turns 21 years of age, or has met the requirements for a Maryland high school diploma or a certificate of program completion. And then for the post-secondary setting, you have Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act, Amendments Act, which prohibits the discrimination on the basis of disability and also protects the individuals with disabilities from discrimination in the workplace, as well as school and other settings. So again, in K to 12, they're entitled to educational psychological testing. For the post-secondary setting, students must provide documentation. They must reach out to the Disability Support Services staff and provide the needed documentation. And then annual review and IEP is something that they receive in the K to 12 setting, no longer applicable in post-secondary. And there's mainly an active parental involvement when they're in K to 12, but that changes when they're in the post-secondary setting, especially with confidentiality clauses and the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So if parents want to continue being involved with their child's education after high school, they need to speak with those college disability support office representatives and determine what they can do now, what forms or what documents can they gather to be able to do that. And then for the K to 12 setting, the schools identify the needs, but after that, students must seek services on their own. They should advocate for the services and those accommodations on their own. Not unlike in high school and K to 12, you have your case managers and you have the parents or families advocate for the young adult. And then K to 12, we have a range of services for them. And then for post-secondary setting, they do not transfer from high school to college level. Again, it's something they need to advocate for. So what are the family responsibilities? We want our families to attend IEP meetings, ask questions, share concerns, make suggestions to the team, and keep records of transition-related services and activities. Review graduation requirements and help make decisions about the diploma or exit options. Review IEP goals and support the student in developing those goals, helping them achieve those goals also, help them with the self-advocacy skills, provide opportunities to explore post-school options such as college tours and work experiences or internship opportunities. Although the school setting helps them with looking for work experiences and internship opportunities, we usually need the parent signature, right? The training agreement or employment agreement. We need the parents' approval for them to engage in those opportunities. And then aside from that, help develop a portfolio that includes an updated IEP, any assessment score, psychological or educational assessments, learning style information, awards or certificates they've received, and then again, work evaluations from their managers or supervisors and other related experiences, and provide opportunities to explore post-school options. So what is the school and school district's responsibility? Set high expectations for our students. That's why we provide them with specially designed instruction, find the best way to teach every student, ensure that accommodations and or modifications that the student requires are provided so that they can be successful in their current programming, teach them also self-determination and self-advocacy skills in the academic setting or school setting, And then we want them, of course, to participate actively in IEP meetings. If they need to use picture supports, if they need to use a little PowerPoint presentation to guide them as they discuss their goals, their strengths, their challenges, interests, and preferences, and current experiences. That's something that, you know, we can accommodate, and what the case manager or the special educator can work with them to create that in preparation for their IEP meetings. So we don't want them to just sit there and, you know, just mention who they are and then sign the sign-in sheet and then that's it, right? They should be active participants. Make sure that annual goals are related to post-secondary goals. So everything, including the transition activities, everything that is in the IEP from 14 years old on must be aligned with their post-secondary goal. Everything must support and help them work towards the achievement of that goal, to help them move closer to that employment goal or education or training goal. And then we want to link students with state and community agencies that can help them. We have DDA, we have DOORS, we have Maryland Labor, also BHA. We're gonna go over those agencies in a few minutes, and then also arrange work experiences, again, with the approval and the guidance of the parents, because we want to make sure when we arrange work experiences for them that they consistently attend work, right? And then that they do a good job also in the work setting. So school preparation, depending on the student's outcomes, here are a few of the services that a student may receive in high school. So self-advocacy, social skills, independent living, work-based learning, and community-based instruction. They also receive academic programming that are based on clear state standards. They may participate in career and technical education programs that are based on industry standards. There's also curricular and programming options based on Universal Design for Learning, SDI, special design instruction, work-based and community-based learning experiences. And of course, graduation standards, graduation requirements, that meet Maryland standards and provides them with options. Do we have any questions in the chat that I need to address now, or do we move on? I'm sorry, cannot see the chat. Just let me know. All right, so adult service agencies. So here, as your child gets older, the transition coordinator or the IEP case manager will assist in linking your child to adult service agencies. These may include Division of Rehabilitation Services, Developmental Disabilities Administration, Behavioral Health Administration, and the Maryland Department of Labor's Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning. So, however, prior to our IEP case manager or transition coordinator making those linkages, prior to a student being referred to any of those agencies, the transition coordinator, IEP case manager must obtain parental consent. Prior to any agency being invited by the school to attend an IEP meeting, the IEP case manager must obtain parental consent as well. And signed consent is good for 1 year from the signature date. So this is what the consent form looks like. So there's 2 sections. The first section is the consent to communicate or refer the student to an agency. And then the second one is the consent to invite an agency representative to an IEP meeting. So this is something that IEP case managers or special education chairs provide our parents or guardians each year prior to the annual review meeting. So these boxes that you see on the left side, the parents must check the appropriate box. Do they want to give us consent in inviting an agency representative to an IEP meeting, or do they not give us any consent? And then for the consent to communicate or refer, are they interested in giving the school team consent to go ahead and do the referral? Or are they choosing to do a self-referral? Or are they not interested in these services at this time and do not want to give us any, do not want to give consent to the school IEP team to do so? So they need to sign and date, parents need to sign and date the form. So what we found out from data management last fall is that majority of our Prince George's County Public Schools parents are not returning this form. So that automatically means we're not allowed, right? We're not allowed to communicate with those agencies, and we're not allowed to refer the students. So if you remember seeing this form and you have not returned it to the case manager or the special ed chair, please request for another copy and then complete one and give it to them. So we can refer your young adult to those agencies, or we can invite agency representatives to the IEP meeting.
Dorley, I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. We have a couple of questions coming in from the chat.
Okay.
Ms. Turt asked, when and what grade level should an agency representative start to participate in the IEP meeting?
For ninth grade, we give this. For 8th grade, we encourage it, but when we speak with them, it's typically 9th and to 12th grade for our agency representatives. But we start giving that at 8th grade.
And there's one other question. There is an entire population, mainly in the regional centers, in which the students are not able to be active participants in their IEP meetings to express goals, strengths. Is it possible to provide information that may be more helpful for families of students where college, trade school, et cetera, are not necessarily options?
For them to become active participants, they can work with case manager and the speech language provider. If they can create speech language pathologists, I'm sorry, if they can create like a Google slide or a PowerPoint presentation with pictures of what community-based experiences or vocational training experiences the student has been involved in, what the young adult strengths are, what their challenges are, using pictures. That would be very helpful, or some sample work they have completed from Unique Learning System, which is a program that we use for our students with disabilities. That we can also use that, capture those, take a screenshot of those, include it in that PowerPoint. That can be something they can use, picture supports for them, right? At least they can point their likes and dislikes and their preferences and the choices that they have and what choices they are more inclined to. Is that helpful? Was that suggestion helpful? I'm not sure who asked it. You can unmute and let us know.
Hi, how are you? This is Tiffany Hemans, and that suggestion was not exactly helpful. As in the regional centers, I don't know if people have a clear idea of the student population in the regional centers. I am the PTO president and a parent of a student at C. Elizabeth Reed Regional Center. Most of these meetings and many of the meetings that I have attended from different special education areas have been geared toward much higher functioning people in the special education system. At our regional centers, it seems that the people who are setting up these meetings have never visited the regional centers to understand the vast majority of disabilities that are represented there. And they are greatly different from those that exist in, I'll say, the regular education schools. Many of our students are not able to express in any way any of the things that you have just explained. So for some of us, we don't know what our transition looks like because it doesn't look like anything that you have described because our students don't fit into that box. So I don't know if a different meeting is required, and I invite someone to come to one of our PTO meetings to speak just to get a better understanding of the population that we have, because most of the programs and information that is provided generally does not fit our population.
Thank you for that feedback, Ms. Tiffany. Yes, I taught ESY for 3 years in a regional program, so I'm very familiar with the students in the regional school setting. But our MSTE secondary transition team highly encourages them to still participate. If it's using the pictures, if it's something that the family and the student and the teacher or case manager and paraprofessional co-creates with the student prior to the IEP meeting, because they also have the picture interest career survey for them, right? And they're also being provided vocational training, especially our 11th, 11C3, C4, and 12th grade regional school students, right? And even during pre-pandemic, they went out to work sites, right? Not all of them have returned to work sites yet, but they're being provided those critical activities of daily living skills and even some vocational experiences within the building.
Right, and some of them are able to do that, but
Yeah.
there is a great percentage of the population that's just not an option for them. And it seems like those that are not able to do that, I don't want to say are getting left behind, but there don't seem to be any options for them. So what happens for those students that maybe in a wheelchair with a feeding tube and require a nurse to be with them at all times? Like, there are vastly different disabilities at the regional center. So there are a lot of the students that are not able to do those things. There are a handful that can, and they are, but there are so many that seem to kind of be left out of what happens next because they're not addressed in this demographic of people that you seem to be targeting. And those parents are parents who feel like there is nothing after the bus stops coming for their child. So what can we do about them?
Yes, after I explain some of the door services, I will go to DDA and the Developmental Disabilities Administration, the services that they provide. They have a variety of services that are more appropriate for many of our regional school students. So there are still options, many options for them. And Melanie and also here can also add to that discussion, because that is also the population they work with, those transitioning youth. So they are very knowledgeable about that as well. So let me just.
But Dorley, I was just gonna add, I think the idea of having maybe a special parent night for students that are in our regional programs, I think it's something that we could probably take back. I know in the past, years ago, we would have, not necessarily, I mean, I know we traditionally would have kind of like fairs where different agencies would come out to talk about what they can offer for students, particularly in our regional programs with the most significant disabilities, and what that actually looks like, because at some point, each of you will have an opportunity to actually go out and visit those different options to be able to make your choice of where you see your child fitting in terms of the services and what those programs can offer. And so I think that's definitely a suggestion that we can take back and talk about what that may look like if we were to host a program or evening for specifically our students that are in the regional program around what that means for them in terms of those options that will look like, when they graduate, and what our GDA experts that come to the meeting should be able to bring in terms of their expertise. So we'll take that back and talk about that with our secondary transition office to see how we can host and partner with C. Elizabeth Reed or some of our, other regional programs to actually host an evening for parents.
Thank you, Trinette.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, I also wanted to chime in about a few things. When my daughter was still in school, she was at Parkdale and she was in the autism program and she took like co-taught classes. But as far as when it came time for, talking about transitions and things like that, at the IEP meetings, there just didn't seem to be any mention of it. And when I would mention things like DDA and doors and stuff like that, nobody seemed to really know what I was talking about. And also, we did go through doors, and for her, it turned out to be a very awful experience. So, I mean, and if doors doesn't work, there just doesn't seem to be anything else out there. There's no other option. So I feel like, we're kind of on our own, just kind of flying we're kind of out there without a safety net. And my son also goes to Reeg, and he's not capable of attending IEP meetings and being able to participate and let us know exactly what he wants to do. So I think it would be very helpful to have someone discuss some options for that group as well.
Agreed. And I think the other piece that Dora Lee was alluding to is kind of what are those strategies? Because we know that students are at very different ranges around communication, how they access information. But definitely, I think that's another piece. And I know that Dora Lee meets with our transitioning and youth coordinators. Every regional program at the secondary level or the high school level actually has a transition coordinator that she meets with on a monthly basis. And that's some of the information and things that they review. So we also want to tap into how that person can also be a resource in terms of the transition process. But we'll definitely take that back and look at how we can work again with our regional programs to host, a virtual evening or a meeting around that piece to support our families.
Thank you, Trinell, and thank you, Ms. Biddle. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with the Division of Rehabilitation Services. So again, this one is not an entitlement service. Students must apply and be determined eligible before doors can begin providing services. So referrals can now be made as early as 14 years old, since they offer two types of services: the pre-employment transition services, and then the vocational rehabilitation piece. So the pre-ed services start at 14 when they're in the 9th grade, and they can receive career counseling, work experience, self-advocacy training. If you're familiar with already a 21 program that is hosted by the Arc of Prince George's, that is what pre-ed's program is basically about. For doors, competitive employment is the outcome for their consumers, and they must follow through, applicants must follow through with appointments to determine eligibility. So after the online referral is completed and submitted, the families will receive mail within 7 to 10 days, and they are supposed to call the phone number or email the person listed there to set up an intake interview, an appointment with a doors representative. If they don't hear from you within a month or so, doors will close the case, and then the families or the student have to reapply. and then start the process all over again. Is there any question from the group? No, okay. Services that doors provide include vocational guidance and assessments. They have job training, job search, job placement, and job coaching and supported employment. They have the Workforce and Technology Center located in Baltimore that provides different types of job training opportunities for our students. The next agency that we have is the Developmental Disabilities Administration. They provide a coordinated service delivery system for people with developmental disabilities. And they partner with them and their families to provide leadership and resources to enable these individuals in living fulfilling lives. And they're guided by the principle that they have the right to direct their lives and services. What are the options for transitioning you? The first one is employment. They have meaningful employment and meaningful day services. The family or the young adult may also choose to go ahead with self-directed services. They provide community and personal supports, residential services, behavioral support services, and even low-intensity support services, which can provide the young adult with disability up to $2,000 in assistance in purchasing or paying for eligible services or items to address their specific needs. Kiara and Melanie, did you want to add something with regard to DDA services, especially for our CRI and regional families?
Dorley, I'm sorry, I'm gonna hop in just for a second. If you're not talking, if you could please go on mute. We're getting some feedback in the sound.
Right. So, Dorley, with DDA, I just want to say that it's really important if your student has a developmental disability or intellectual disability that they sign up for DDA, learn more about the services that DDA offers through transition and youth fairs, and actually talking to the coordinator of community services who acts as an advocate for those who apply for DDA services. You're more than welcome for any parent that want to contact the ARC Benefits Enrollment Center. We are willing to share what we know about services, life after school, because it looks different for different folks. But we're definitely willing to share and answer questions, and we're willing to come to PTA meetings to share too.
Hey, Ms. Palamos, if you could wrap up real quick so that we can hear from Melanie and Ms. Bragg during this session, please.
Sure. Next one is the Maryland Department of Labor. They partner with local workforce agencies to provide a variety of employment and support resources to assist our job seekers. So for the Prince George's County, one of their partners is Employ Prince George's. They provide employment services and workforce development needs. Some of the services that they offer include the items listed here. And then they have two very important youth services that they offer at this time. The first one is Youth Career Connections Program. These are the services they provide for youth 14 to 24. They can be in-school youth and out-of-school youth. They provide them with necessary tools to become competitive in the workforce through career pathway service models. And then the KEYS program, the Knowledge Equals Youth Success. It provides our young adults with disabilities 18 to 24 with the necessary tools to become competitive again in the workforce. This is for 18 to 24-year-old Prince George's County residents. They require high school diploma for this program. And if the student is not in college and does not have a full-time job, they can participate in this program. I've also provided the number for the American Job Center and the Youth Career Center in Prince George's, I'm sorry. And then of course we have Behavioral Health Administration. This is for those students who meet some health, who have health and wellness needs, as well as emotional and psychiatric disorders, but they also serve individuals who have substance abuse and addiction-related cases. So these are the supports they provide for our students with emotional disabilities, but they need to self-refer for this one because of HIPAA laws. All right, so I've provided some of those agency linkage documents and resources here for you to refer after. And then I also provided some Metro Access application and the travel training program information and what the application process looks like. So Metro Access is a door-to-door service offered by Metro Access for people with disabilities who are unable to use regular accessible Metro bus and Metro train transportation for some or all of their public transportation needs due to their disability. And then I've also included how you can get started in the process of preparing them, applying for DDA, SSI, Medicaid, Metro Access, the Transitioning Youth Fair. We're going to host another one this spring. We hosted one that was virtual last fall. So hopefully we can host an in-person one this spring. Visit with adult agency service providers. And then the IEP portfolio, so that when you go ahead and interview with the direct service providers or coordinators of community services, you have all these important information about your young adult with disability, as well as self-determination. What does that look like, aside from giving them little responsibilities and chores at home, right? Making choices, awareness of their strengths, making decisions, speaking up for themselves, understanding their rights, communicating their needs to others, whether it be verbally or using picture supports, right? And how you can start promoting independence, especially those who are taking medications, when to take medications correctly, setting up appointments, using their phones to call for help, filling out forms, creating a schedule, managing their money, using a debit card to purchase, withdraw money using an ATM, and asking for assistance and using a bus or train and looking at the schedule. So these are some practical guides that we have right now. And we also want to invite you. Melanie, do you wanna, I'm gonna pull up the flyer here for the Transition 101.
So Transition 101 is a webinar series that we do. This year, we're committed to breaking down the series and offering it during lunchtime so that we can get a better understanding of the Developmental Disability Administration. Doesn't exclude going to any of the transitioning youth fairs, but we wanted to break down the components of the system of DDA. And so this is our second series for the year. And so we'll be talking about the role of we call them CCS, the Coordinator of Community Services. What is that role? What their responsibility are, how to engage with them, how they assist and advocate for you. And so it's really important as you transition out every system, every benefit has their own eligibility criteria. And so this is where it becomes really important that we engage as much as possible, as many webinars and trainings, and go to the website, the School Systems Transition and Youth website, listen to previous recordings. It is really important. It's a lot to digest. And so we want to prepare our youth to live their best life. And it takes a lot of charting and mapping. What does it look like? What are relationship-based resources? What are the eligibility resources? What are the technology resources? What are the relationship-based resources that are natural supports that are going to help our youth transition from school into adulthood? So I highly encourage everybody to sign up for the webinar and listen to really understand the role of their CCS and how to prepare the transition.
And Kiara, would you like to share with our parents about the Transitioning Youth Fair?
Hi, everyone. Yes, the Transitioning Youth Fair is coming up. It's in the works. We plan to have one in the spring, so I'll make sure that Ms. Doralee, she gets that information out to you guys, but I look forward to having that meeting and having providers at that meeting so they can ask any questions that you may have. Also, the fair is quite informative. Like Ms. Melanie is saying, there is a lot to digest, so we try to break it down in segments for you guys so it's not overwhelming, because I do understand, coming from a coordination agency, once that student turns 21, we are overwhelming you with what we need and what is required by a certain deadline. So that fair will be coming up really soon, and I hope that everyone can come out. If you cannot come out, the webinar will be posted on our website. You can always go back to it, look at the many different resources that we have on that website, and reach out to us if you need anything.
Thank you. And also the Parents Place Guiding the Journey training is available for our parents. So I'm also sharing the link if they are interested in applying. The due date is February 6th. And for those students who are college bound and or trade school bound, we're hosting the annual Special Education College and Career Fair in person again this year at Fairmont Heights High School on April 12th. We hope to see some of you there. So my name is Doralee Palamos again. If you have any questions for the secondary transition team, please email secondary.transition@pgcps.org. And this is my phone number right here. And in the chat, I will add the link to the website that we just shared.